Okay. He's going to blow the shofar and then we'll get started.
That was good.
Yeah. Getting better. So we're at chapter 4, right?
Has he been practicing?
Yeah, he's been blowing the shofar a lot. Been standing on top of our trailer. He's been blowing it. And
He's been pretty good at it.
Lisa Mary posted something in on her post. The numbers, and it says when they go to war over your land, to blow the trumpet.
Oh.
And that he was doing that already. And I'm like, wow, that's confirmation. He's been blowing the shofar a lot this week.
And that's what they used to do in the time of the Israelites and the tribes. Arise, O Lord, may your enemies be scattered.
Yeah, he's been blowing it a lot. So, yeah.
Well, who wants to read chapter 4? It's not very long.
I'll read.
Okay.
After these things I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was like a trumpet speaking with me, saying, Come up here, and I will show you things which must take place after this. Immediately I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. And he who sat there was like a jasper and a sardis stone in appearance. And there was a rainbow around the throne, in appearance like an emerald. Around the throne were 24 thrones, and on the thrones I saw 24 elders sitting, clothed in white robes, and they had crowns of gold on their head. And from the throne proceeded lightnings, thunderings, and voices. 7 lamps of fire were burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of God. Before the throne there was a sea of glass, like crystal, and in the midst of the throne and around the throne were 4 living creatures, full of eyes in front and in back. The first living creature was like a lion, the second living creature like a calf, the third living creature had the face of a man, and the fourth living creature was like a flying eagle. The 4 living creatures, each having 6 wings, were full of eyes around and within, and they do not rest day nor night, saying, Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. Whenever the living creatures give glory and honor and thanks to him who sits on the throne, who lives forever and ever, the 24 elders fall down before him who sits on the throne and worship him who lives forever and ever, and cast their crowns before the throne, saying, You are worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things, and by your will they exist and were created.
So I was like, oh, Anya didn't do chapter 4 because I was like, oh, that's going to be difficult. It's really highly symbolic. And I'm like, oh, Lord, help. But anyway, as I was, going through it and studying it out, I see John being brought into the throne room of heaven. Judgment was beginning to take place. And some people I've heard say that, this is 2,000 years later, but it says in chapter 4, verse 1, that after these things, after the letters of John, after these things, after being accompaniment, same relations of participation and proximity and sequence. So this isn't something that was supposed to take place throughout time or down the road 2,000 years. This is after John was given the letters to rebuke and admonish the churches. Then he's given these visions of going into the throne room of God. And so when it says in verse 2, this stuck out to me. Immediately I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. I just thought it was significant that it pointed out one, because Yeshua and the Father are one. You know, it didn't point out two or three. One judge sitting on the throne, he and the Father. And so Jesus, okay, so we're at this throne room. Judgment is getting ready to happen. Jesus is the judge. And so I say this because John 5:22 says, "For the Father judges no man, but has committed all judgment unto the Son." And then in 5:25 through 29, talks about, "Verily, verily, I say unto you, the hour is coming, and now is, when the dead will hear the voice of the Son of God, and they that hear shall live. For as the Father has life in himself, so has he given the Son to have life in himself, and has given him authority to execute judgment." So Jesus is the judge on the throne, and I'm just saying, this is my understanding, because Revelation is highly symbolic and everybody has an interpretation. So all I can share is my understanding. So when it talks about the 24 elders in Revelation 4, verse 4, I'm thinking that possibly it's the 12 patriarchs and the 12 apostles. Is that what you guys believe?
Very possible, because he told them that they would rule and reign with him.
Yeah, and they're in that time period.
Yeah.
So support for this idea can be found in Revelation 21. Who wants to read Revelation 21:12 and 14?
Revelation what?
21:12 and 14. Anyone?
12 and 14.
Yeah. You want to read, honey?
I will read it. Find it.
21, 12.
12 and 14.
Okay. You find it, hon?
Yeah.
And also somebody can go to Matthew 19:28. So when he's done reading, somebody can read Matthew 19:28.
I was about to say in the first part, it says also, and you said also. So I thought you were.
Matthew 28, you said?
Oh, boy.
Matthew 19:28.
Oh, 19. Okay.
Okay. Also, she had a great and high wall with 12 gates and 12 angels at the gates, and names written on them, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. And now the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and on them were the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb.
Okay. And then 19:28.
Okay, I have it. And Jesus said to them, "Amen, I say to you, that you, the ones following me in the regeneration, whenever the Son should be seated, or the Son of Man should be seated upon the throne of glory. You shall also sit upon the 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel."
So I'm thinking possibly that the 24 elders are the 12 patriarchs and the 12 apostles, because they're the foundation of the New Jerusalem, in the city, the city and the new covenant. So anybody have anything other than that?
Oh, that's a possibility.
Okay. So in this throne room, who is the accused? In the whole narrative of the story, who are the ones that are being judged?
Oh,
Those that don't believe.
Does it say in here? You stumped me.
Judah.
It's Jerusalem.
Yeah, or Jerusalem.
Jerusalem is the accused in this throne. This is a heavenly courtroom, and they are the ones being judged. And so let's read Matthew 23, 31 through 38. Who wants to read it? Because this tells us who's about to be judged.
No,
I mean, we all know this, but for the sake of,
Yeah.
others.
What was it?
Matthew 23, verses 31 through 38.
31.
I can read it if you like.
Okay.
31
Yeah.
to 38.
Yeah.
Wherefore ye be witnesses unto yourselves that ye are the children of them which killed the prophets. Fill ye up then the measure of your fathers. Ye serpents, ye generation of vipers, how can ye escape the damnation of hell? Wherefore, behold, I send unto you prophets and wise men and scribes, and some of them ye shall kill and crucify, and some of them shall ye scourge in your synagogues, and persecute them from city to city, that upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zacharias, son of Barachias, whom ye slew between the temple and the altar. Verily I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets and stonest them which are sent unto thee, how often would I have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathereth her chickens under her wings, and ye would not. Behold, your house is left unto you desolate. For I say unto you, ye shall not see me henceforth till ye shall say, Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord.
So the Jews, the Old Covenant Israel, he's speaking to them, and they are the ones that are being judged. Ye serpents, ye generation of vipers, upon you may come all the righteous bloodshed upon the earth. And verily I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation, his generation. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that kills the prophets and stones those that are sent to thee. Behold, your house is left unto you desolate. So they are the ones being accused in this heavenly courtroom.
I have a little bit different take on this too in chapter 4. I think this is the Holy of Holies.
Yes.
The temple, and declaring the reality next to the shadow. The shadow is what they've always known, but this is the reality of where he is and who he is, and the worship that goes upon him 24 hours a day, or endless worship.
Yes. And I'm going to go over that too, so I agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why I was stumped when you were talking about judgment, but I see the throne also could, like we are worshiping him, constantly as we look to him, and he's looking behind us, and he's taking care of the enemy behind us, as but we're to look at him. We don't have to fight the enemy behind us.
Amen. Yeah. Amen. Well, and that's how I see it, and I'm gonna get there. I was just going over, it being the heavenly courtroom, but also it's all about the temple in heaven. So I guess to me it went together.
Yeah.
But, So I just wanted to mention what Jesus's comment is about hell briefly. Hell is Gehenna. It's the, well, let me just pull it up. I'll explain what I'm talking about here. Which verse is it?
I don't know what.
Here, see what she said.
Oh, maybe, okay, 33. Here it is. Okay, so just so people know this is not something, my words. This word hell right here is the word Gehenna. So Gehenna is the valley of the son of Hinnom. It's a valley of Jerusalem. And it says it's the name of a place of everlasting punishment, but I don't believe in everlasting punishment. I believe, we've talked about that recently, your videos and everything else. So I think that's just translator bias, because Jesus was speaking to the Jews, and it's a valley outside of Jerusalem where they buried the dead bodies. And so this is what I'm talking about here as far as hell. Let's see. I can't really put my notes up. It's not talking about Sheol, the underworld or the grave or the pit, because Sheol is a different word. It's another word for hell, but Jesus was specifically talking about Gehenna when he told them, who warned you to flee from the condemnation of hell, the judgment of hell. So, anybody have any questions on that?
It was an interesting video. I think you posted, was it you, Lisa, that posted from the Berean Bible study videos the other day where the dude was talking about hell? That was really interesting because he said someone had contacted him about...
I heard that, but how are we supposed to know 2,000 years later?
Right.
It's been a long time,
I thought it was just interesting that he said how he just kind of gone along with the conjecture of what he was told it was as well. And there is actually no record of it being a particular thing that they said it was also. So I just thought that was really interesting.
Well, but when you look up Gehenna, Isaiah, well, I have a few of the scriptures, and it could be or couldn't be, I don't know, but it's been 2,000 years. How do you know that? I mean, you know what I mean? So I don't know if I agreed with him on that. And let's see, is everybody following what we're talking about?
Not exactly.
Well, he's just saying that he was teaching about hell, and that somebody contacted him and said that they went to Israel and they didn't see any evidence of a valley outside Jerusalem, but it was just a refuge dump, and so I don't know.
I think what he said was they were trying to find actual record or something that would say that they used to dump bodies there, and that it was a burning pit, like that they would put the bodies in there. But I'm pretty sure there was something that it was Flavius Josephus had said something about the pile of bodies. I'm not sure whether he mentions Gehenna or not. I haven't really studied it like that, but yeah.
He does mention it, yeah.
Yeah.
Who is the he that you're talking about?
What's his name?
David Curtis.
Oh.
Yes.
From Berean Bible Church. But I have read articles of Josephus saying that dead bodies were thrown in there. It's supposed to be, it's a valley outside of Jerusalem, and it's the place of Gehenna. It's where they used to sacrifice to the god of Molech and pass their children through the fire. And Jeremiah and Isaiah both talk about it. And let's see, let's go to Jeremiah.
What I was thinking, what struck me is that maybe during that time, because they were so overwhelmed with bodies, that may have been where they used it for that time. I mean, that's just speculation on my
That's what I think. Yeah,
However,
because they had to have some place for all the bodies to go.
absolutely. I mean, it would have been a stinking, horrible, disease-ridden mess. So, you know, that seems logical if they already had a place where they would dump stuff anyway.
And not only that, but Malachi says that the righteous were going to walk on their ashes. So to me, that's talking about the burning of Jerusalem and them walking on the ashes of the dead bodies.
Yep.
That's what I see so far. But Jeremiah 30 through 34, does somebody want to read it?
Okay.
Jeremiah 30:34.
30 through 37, sorry, Jeremiah chapter 7, verse 30 through 34.
Oh my goodness.
It's talking about the valley of slaughter.
Mine only goes to 24.
No, chapter 7. Chapter 7.
Yeah, Jeremiah 7.
Oh,
I know. I was trying to.
Here's 30.
Yeah, that's what you said.
Here.
Okay, chapter 7, 34 or what?
30.
30. 26, 27,
Oh,
28.
here we are.
Oh, I got it. 30.
You want to read it,
Okay.
Karen?
Okay. For the sons of Judah did wicked before me, says the Lord. They arranged their abominations in the house of which my name is called upon it, to defile it. And they built the shrine of Tophet, which is in the ravine of the son of Hinnom, to incinerate their sons and their daughters by fire, which I did not give charge to them, and considered it not in my heart. On account of this, behold, days come, says the Lord, and they shall not say any more, shrine of Tophet, and ravine of the son of Hinnom, but the ravine of the ones being done away with. And they shall entomb in Tophet, on account of a place not existing. And the dead ones of this people will be for food to the birds of the heavens and to the wild beasts of the earth, and there will not be one frightening them away. And I will depose from out of the cities of Judah and from out of the corridors of Jerusalem the voices of ones being glad and the voice of ones rejoicing, the voice of the groom, the voice of the bride, for all the land will be for desolation.
The land shall be desolate. So this is the place, Jeremiah is talking about this place called Gehenna. It's the valley of the son of Hinnom. It's called the valley of slaughter. It's where they built the high places, burned their sons and daughters in the fire. This is all Judah that did this.
Yeah.
And down here in verse 34, the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, which tells you right there who the whore of Revelation 17 and 18 is. Because Jerusalem was the bride. They were the wife. And their land shall be desolate. So this is all a prophecy of Gehenna. And then, let's see. I'll go to 2 Chronicles 28:3. I'm not going to go over a lot of this, but some people probably don't know. So it says, moreover, it's talking about King Ahaz. Moreover, he burnt incense in the valley of the son of Hinnom and burnt his children in the fire after the abominations of the heathen, whom the Lord had cast out before the children of Israel. And he sacrificed also and burnt incense in the high places and on the hills and under every green tree. So Ahaz also burned the children in the fire of this valley of Gehenna. And then, let's see. So the valley became the dumping ground for the sewage and refuse of the city. It was a place of crawling worms and maggots. By defiling this place with refuse, Josiah stopped the child sacrifices. Fires burned continually to destroy the garbage and the impurities. Hence the name Gehenna came to be used as a symbol of punishment. The prophet Isaiah wrote in 66:24, he says, "And they shall go forth and look upon the corpses of the one who transgressed against me, for their worm does not die, and their fire is not quenched. They shall be an abhorrence to all flesh." So Isaiah's prophesying of the same place. The eternal fiery place of torment of hell came from the Catholic Church to control people. And so this doctrine that we've held all these years about hell is not a place of fiery torment. Jesus was not speaking to them about this place of fiery torment. He was speaking to them about the judgment of Jerusalem, the burning of the city, and the valley outside of Jerusalem. So Gehenna, or the Valley of Hinnom, is an actual valley in the city of Jerusalem. In Israel's past, it was used as a place of child sacrifice from the reign of Josiah onward. It was used as a garbage dump where the fires burned the refuse continually. So that's what I wanted to say about that. What does everybody think about that?
I find it interesting that they were burning children alive. So it's like he gave them over to their own sins. And so he's like, if you're going to burn your own children, then I guess you're going to be burnt.
And, I should have gotten more scriptures, but there's one in Jeremiah 2 that he says that he did not command them. It's not his heart to, that's where the perpetual burning came from. And so, yeah, he's going to give them over to what they were always doing, what you said. But that's what he said when, I showed you right there, that word hell is Gehenna. I'll put it up there one more time. So when you read about the valley of the son of Hinnom or the valley of slaughter, that's what it's talking about. That valley outside of Jerusalem. Let me go back to that one more time just to pull it up so everybody sees the word. See, the Apostolic Polyglot Bible uses the right word, Gehenna, right here. And that's what it is. Right here. That's the definition.
I've read several things about how, like you said, the sacrifices, the people of Judah would sacrifice children and whatnot to Molech, and it was considered by the Jews to be a cursed place because of what had happened there and because of all the sacrifices that had been made there.
Yep, exactly. And this is what he told them. They were about to be judged. He said, "You serpents, you generation of vipers, how can you escape the damnation of hell?" He was speaking to them. Their house was getting ready to be brought to desolation, and Jerusalem was getting ready to be judged. So anyways, that's all I wanted to say about that. Does anybody have any thoughts on the 4 living creatures?
But isn't that whole section almost a complete repeat of Ezekiel, the vision in Ezekiel
Yes.
with the 4 living creatures in there?
Yeah. Mine,
Yes, and I have all that down too, so I'll just I'll just go over it.
it says on that.
Okay, so from the scriptures that I looked up, I see that these living creatures show up as the Father takes his prophets in the Spirit into the throne room of God. Ezekiel gives a description of what they are. From what I have read, there are 2 kinds, ceraphim and cherabim. So let's go to Ezekiel chapter 1.
Yeah, 1, 5, 10.
Who would like to read 1 through 28?
You got that, honey?
Yeah, I got it.
I
I
can
could
read
read
it.
it.
Because, okay, I was just going to say, so Ezekiel's being brought in a vision into the throne room of God. And it seems to me like every time a prophet is brought into the throne room, cherubim and seraphim show up. And so he's going to describe what they look like. And then in chapter 10, he tells us what they are. So anyway, go ahead.
So, do you want Dorothy to read, or do you want, I think both Jay and Dorothy volunteered.
Jay can read till verse 10 and Dorothy can read the rest. How's that?
Okay,
Yeah,
sounds good.
sounds good then. Now it came to pass in the 13th year of the 4th month, on the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river Shabar, that the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of Yahweh on the 5th day of the month, which was in the 5th year of King Jehoiakim's captivity. The word of Yahweh came expressly to Ezekiel, the priest, the son of Buzi, in the land of the Chaldeans, by the river Shabar. And the hand of Yahweh was upon him there. Then I looked, and behold, a whirlwind was coming out of the north, a great cloud with raging fire engulfing itself. And brightness was all around it, radiating out of its midst like the color of amber out of the midst of the fire. Also from within it came the likeness of the 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man, each had 4 faces, each had 4 wings. Their legs were straight, and the soles of their feet were like the soles of calves' feet. They sparkled like the color of burnished bronze. The hand of a man were under their wings on their 4 sides, and each of the 4 had faces and wings. Their wings touched one another. The creatures did not turn when they went, but each one went straight forward. As for the likeness of their faces, each had the face of a man, each had the 4 of the 4 had the face of a lion on the right side, each of the 4 had the face of an ox on the left side, and each of the 4 had the face of an eagle.
Okay,
Thus
Oh,
were the faces. Their wings stretched upward, 2 wings of each, one touched one another, and 2 covered their bodies. And each one went straight forward. They went wherever the Spirit wanted them to go, and they did not turn when they went. For the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire, like the appearance of torches going back and forth among the living creatures. The fire was bright, and out of the fire went lightning, and the living creatures ran back and forth in appearance like a flash of lightning. Now as I looked at the living creatures, behold, a wheel was on the earth beside each living creature with its 4 faces. The appearance of the wheels and their workings was like the color of beryl, and all 4 had the same likeness. The appearance of their workings was, as it were, a wheel in the middle of a wheel. That when they moved, they went toward any one of 4 directions. They did not turn aside when they went. As for their rims, they were so high they were awesome, and their rims were full of eyes all around the 4 of them. When the living creatures went, the wheels went beside them. And when the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up. Wherever the Spirit wanted to go, they went, because there the Spirit went, and the wheels were lifted together with them, for the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. When they went, these went. When those stood, these stood. And when those were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up together with them, for the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. The likeness of the firmament above the heads of the living creatures was like the color of an awesome crystal stretched out over their heads. And under the firmament, their wings spread out straight, one toward another. Each one had 2 which covered one side, and each one had 2 which covered the other side of the body. When they went, I heard the noise of their wings, like the noise of many waters, like the voice of the Almighty, a tumult like the noise of an army. And when they stood still, they let down their wings. A voice came from above the firmament that was over their heads. Whenever they stood, they let down their wings. And above the firmament over their heads was the likeness of a throne in appearance, like sapphire stone. On the likeness of the throne was the likeness with the appearance of a man high above it. Also from the appearance of his waist and upward I saw, as it were, the color of amber, with the appearance of fire all around within it. And from the appearance of his waist and downward I saw, as it were, the appearance of fire with brightness all around. Like the appearance of a rainbow in a cloud on a rainy day, so is the appearance of the brightness all around it. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. When I saw it, I fell on my face, and I heard the voice of one speaking.
Okay, so now go to chapter 10. Who wants to split this one up? Jax, do you want to read?
I don't think she
I'll
has a
pass.
speaker. Oh, you do have a
Anybody? Karen?
Okay.
So what?
chapter 10, verse 1.
Yeah,
Can I-
and what I wanted to say is, you guys, I don't know if you've read Ezekiel chapter 1 through chapter 10, but it's all about the throne room. Ezekiel taken up into the throne room. He's showing that they're about to be judged. And so all of this is what's, him in the throne room, the courtroom of heaven, just like John is being shown. So.
Okay. And I beheld, and behold, upon the firmament, above the head of the cherubim, was a likeness of a throne of sapphire stone over them. And he said to the man clothed by the robe, enter into the midst of the wheels underneath the cherubim, and fill your hands full of coals of fire from out of the midst of the cherubim, and scatter them upon the city. And he entered before me, and the cherubim stood at the right of the house in the entering of the man, and the cloud filled the inner courtyard.
I don't know. How far is she supposed to read?
Well, you could fast forward to verse 20 because that tells us what they are.
Okay. This is the living creature, which I saw underneath the God of Israel by the river Shebar, and I knew that there are cherubim, 4 faces to the one, 4 wings to the one, and having a likeness of hands of men from beneath their wings, and the likeness of their faces. These are the faces which I saw underneath the glory of the God of Israel by the river Shebar in the vision of them. And these, each of them, went according to their faith.
And so the description in Brown's Driver Briggs definition, angelic being, as guardians of Eden, they guard God's throne. They're the image that was hovering over the Ark of the Covenant on both sides. And I think this is cool. They're the chariots. God rides them. They're the chariots. They have the wheels. And Yahuwah rides the chariots. I believe he's riding the cherubim. So I thought that was cool. What John saw and what Isaiah sees are seraphim, though, because cherubim have 4 wings and the seraphim have 6 wings. And the cherubim, I think, is cool because they're placed at the entrance to Eden. And they're also set at both ends of the Ark of the Covenant, the throne of God in the temple. And they're also woven into the veil on both, one on each side of the veil. And so when Ezekiel and John and Isaiah, we're going to read Isaiah, they're brought into the throne room, they're seeing the presence of cherubim on both sides of the throne, and Yahuwah sits between them. So, anyways, Genesis.
That's interesting. It sounds like seraphim, the chariot wheels, the chariots they used for war, in that time frame. So they would carry him to war of judgment, and then the cherubim guarded and protected the disobedient from the presence of Yahweh, meaning the veil. So you couldn't come in because that's really kind of interesting.
And I hadn't thought about it before, because when I was going over the 4 living creatures, I was like, oh my word, I don't have any idea what these are. And then I started, it all started coming together. So when those appear, it's somebody is being brought into the heavenly courtroom, the temple in heaven and stuff. And so the cherubim have wheels, and I thought it was interesting that he said in Ezekiel chapter 10 for the man clothed in linen to go and gather coals of fire from among the wheels of the cherubim, and it says to scatter them over the city. And so I thought that was interesting. And that in verse 4, it says, and the court was full of the brightness of the Lord's glory. So that I was thinking that, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll go over that in a minute. But yeah, I never thought of, so Genesis 3:24 says, he drove out the man and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims and a flaming sword which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. Yahuwah rides the cherubim. Ezekiel says that they have wheels. I believe that when the Bible describes Yahuwah on chariots, that he is riding upon the cherubim. Well, somebody want to read Psalm 18:10?
Would you guys mind if I interject something here?
Sure.
About the cherubim, or however it's correctly pronounced, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
if you notice in the book of Revelation, when there's some other descriptions of, like Christ is the Lion of Judah, but he's a lamb. Oftentimes, like when you see the cherubim, you see these descriptions of where they're sort of man and beast all together, right?
Yeah.
And they have power in their wheels. They have the coals of fire and so forth. I watched a very interesting video a while back about cherubims in other ancient cultures. And in particular, Babylon have cherubim depicted. And it really came to my mind that what we could be seeing here is they are symbolic images of God riding over nations from the north to the west to the south to the east, all four corners. And he gives them power, but he rules over them regardless. And that's his throne position that we see both in Revelation 4 and like in Isaiah also, where you're before the throne. Because when you go back in scripture and you look at this part of the writing on the clouds, God's ruling over everything. I don't know, I'm really struck by the images of these cherubim. They have the same imagery that we see of Christ's authority, of being of the lion and the lamb. I don't know, I'm really struck by that is it possible what we're seeing there is a visionary of God has set rulership over the world of these divine sort of setup, and rather than seeing it as some sort of a spiritual being? Is that a possibility? Because we do see these cherubim pop up in Egypt, in Babylon. You go through all the ancient cultures, and if you do a Google search on them, you'll see that everybody had these imageries of the cherubim and a throne that they sit over, and that's symbolic of rulership in their cultural aspect. So
Absolutely.
is Ezekiel borrowing that to help demonstrate God's total authority over all the earth, all four living creatures, with the different characteristics that each of them have, all with the man of a face, the face of a man, and each one on each side is different, but it's like those are their characteristics, if you can understand what I'm saying.
Are you talking about like the Great Council?
I don't know if I'd go there with that, but I suppose that's a possibility. I don't know. I'm just really struck by the fact that all ancient cultures had these cherubims that sat on thrones, especially Babylon in particular.
And they have all these pictographs and things to describe it. Yeah.
Right. And so, I don't know. I just find it really interesting that these cherubim have the characteristics that are described, even of Israel having, these kind of characteristics. I don't know. I find that's an interesting connection. I just wanted to interject that. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I find that interesting, Jax, because do the other ones have wheels that are the spirits of God?
Well, I didn't see that the other ones had wheels, just the cherubim, but I don't know. I mean,
but that would indicate that the Spirit of God is in the wheels and showing rulership. I don't know what that means more than that, but I find it interesting that
everything's so highly symbolic. So,
well, it could mean just a symbol of their, them. Okay, like the statue of Daniel. The qualities of those nations were brought out in the individual characteristics of the statue, right? So maybe the wheels is symbolic of how they move through history. They have power by God to move through history and time. And I don't know. It's kind of fascinating to me that there's all these other characteristics we see elsewhere in the Bible that show us these same sorts of things. And like I said, even applied to Israel or applied to Rome or Mesopotamia. I don't know. That's just an interesting connection I see.
Yeah, for sure. Well, who's got Psalms 18:10?
I do.
Okay.
And he mounted upon cherubim and spread out. He spread out upon wings of winds.
And we know it's all, metaphoric language. So, I mean, I don't have any set thing, I'm just sharing what I see, and absolutely, for sure, Jax. And how about Psalms 80, verse 1?
Here wasn't red. Yep.
They're having speaker problems.
Oh,
Psalms 80, verse 1, Danny will read.
Okay.
yeah, good.
Give ear, O shepherd of Israel. You will lead Joseph like a flock. You will dwell between the cherubim. Shine forth.
And so this is why Moses was instructed to place cherubim made of gold at both ends of the ark. Yahuwah dwells between them in the Holy of Holies. Let's go to Exodus 25 and read a few verses. Jody, do you want to read?
Yeah. Everybody. Oh, no.
Or whoever's ready, whoever gets there.
What is it?
Oh, Exodus 25, verses 18 through 20.
Yeah, I can read. Okay. And you shall make 2 cherubim of gold, of hammered work. You shall make them at the 2 ends of the mercy seat. Make one cherub at one end and the other cherub at the other end. You shall make the cherubim at the 2 ends of it of one piece with the mercy seat. To where?
Verse 20.
And the cherubim shall stretch out their wings above, covered the mercy seat with their wings, and they shall face one another. The faces of the cherubim shall be toward the mercy seat.
So I just think it's cool, because we know that the book of Revelation is all about the ending of the old and the beginning of the new. And so they're at the entrance, as John comes into. Huh?
It's interesting in the polyglot, instead of mercy seat, it says atonement seat.
I saw that when I was.
That's really interesting that the atonement seat was guarded by the cherubim and they couldn't enter into it. And that atonement that Yahushua did for us brings us to the tree of life, which was guarded in Eden from us entering in. And also the veil of the temple was rent when he made atonement, he removed those cherubim so we could enter into that and eat of the tree of life once again, which is, he made a way. So they're not guarding anymore because he made a way through that atonement.
Amen. Yeah. That takes me to Exodus 26:31. Does somebody want to read that?
Okay, I got it. It says, and you shall make a veil from out of blue and purple and scarlet, being twined, and linen being spun. You shall make it a woven work with cherubim. And you shall place it upon 4 posts of incorruptible wood, being gilded of gold, and the tips of them shall be in gold, and the bases of the 4 bases made of silver. You want me to keep reading?
Nope, that's good. So the living creatures that John sees in Revelation are the seraphim, which are also the same ones Isaiah sees, because both speak of seeing 6 wings, where the cherubim have only 4 wings. A seraphim, it says, a majestic being with 6 wings, human hands or voices in attendance upon God. So they have 6 wings, 2 to cover their faces, 2 to cover their feet, and 2 they would fly with, full of eyes around and within, 4 faces of a lion, calf, man, and eagle. And yeah, Jax, I'm with you. I have no idea what those symbolize.
Well, the number 6 is the number of man.
Yeah.
And then it has the hand of a man. So that would, to me, that would represent the rulership of mankind. You know, and they have the ability, you know, like the fierceness of a lion. They have the appearance of a man. What was the other 2 faces?
Calf or an ox.
Calf, ox, and
yeah. So an ox would be aleph, meaning authority.
First.
You know, in Hebrew, the word, the first letter, authority. So I think it means like the kings of the earth, or that, you know, God is overcharge of all the kings of the earth. And yeah, and he rides upon them. He uses them for his agenda and his glory, whether they realize it or not.
Our Father's interesting for sure.
So that's just what I've seen in what you were saying.
Well, and they fly all around the throne, and their duty is to worship and praise Yahuwah continually. And that's why in Revelation it says when they were singing, holy, holy, holy.
And a true king that was placed before, that was set up by Yahuwah, was to worship him, the one and only king, and do his mandates in the earth. That's why the king was supposed to write the Torah. Their whole thing was about the Torah. They had to write it, and they weren't supposed to get wealth for themselves, but they were to be a servant of the Most High, you know, a true king. So I could see that being part of that.
Yeah, continually praising and serving him. And they show up in Isaiah when he's being commissioned by God to be a prophet and is taken into the throne room of heaven. Who wants to read Isaiah 6, 1 through 7?
Isaiah 6, 1 through 7.
Yeah, Isaiah 6, 1 through 7.
Four. Here, 6, 1 through 7. You want me to go?
Sure.
And it came to pass the year of which King Uzziah died, I beheld the Lord sitting upon a high throne, and being lifted up, and the house was full of his glory. And a cherubim stood round about him 6 wings to the one and 6 wings to the other. And with the first 2 they covered up the front, and with the second 2 they covered up the feet, and with the third 2 they flew. And they cried out another to another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. All the earth is full of his glory. And the lintel lifted up from the sound of which they cried out, and the house was filled up of smoke. And how far are we going? And I said, Oh, I am miserable, for I am vexed, for being a man and having unclean lips in the midst of the people. Having unclean lips I live in, and the King, the Lord of hosts, I beheld with my eyes. And one of the seraphim was sent to him, and in the hand he held a coal, which he took from the altar with the tongue, and he touched my mouth and said, Behold, this touched your lips, and your lawless deeds it shall remove, and it shall purge your sin.
And maybe they cover their faces because they're so close to the glory of God that it's illuminating, you know.
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
But, so Isaiah sees seraphim. They have 6 wings. And so
I noticed something in common with Ezekiel and Isaiah. I don't know if it was the seraphim or not, but they both mentioned the coal.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The burning coal. One of them had the coal in the wheels. Was that the seraphim?
Cherubim.
Cherubim. Okay,
Yeah.
and this is the seraphim.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they're just living creatures that are in the midst of the throne. What I gather, the cherubim are at the sides of the throne where the Father sits in the middle, and the seraphim are all around saying, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord, you know, in this heavenly courtroom. I just thought it was neat.
Yeah.
So any ideas on what the sea of glass is?
I think it represents purity of the nations. Because the sea is the nation, and glass, being able to see through it, is a pureness of, you know, when there's a lake in North Idaho that is so clean, Lake Coeur d'Alene, so clear.
But then there's that other one too that's really clear.
Yeah, you can just see down to the bottom. It doesn't matter how far, you know, you can see like 20 feet to the bottom. And that is, you know, that represents purity.
Yes. Oh, Sunny said, I have to go be truck nurse. Love you all and see you next time.
Bye.
She's already gone.
She left a while ago.
So, okay, so Revelation 4:6, it says, And before the throne there was a sea of glass like unto crystal, and in the midst of the throne and round about the throne were four beasts full of eyes before and behind. So, Exodus 30, who wants to read this one? Exodus 30, 17 through 21. Carol?
Lisa, we're having problems with our audio.
Okay.
You sounded good there. Maybe it's fixed.
I got it if you want me to read it.
Sure, go ahead, Jax.
Did you say verse 31?
Starting with, it's chapter 30, 17 through 21.
17 through 21. Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
The Lord said to Moses, you shall also make a basin of bronze with its stand of bronze for washing. You shall put it between the tent of the meeting and the altar, and you shall put water in it, with which Aaron and his sons shall wash their hands and their feet when they go into the tent of meeting, or when they come near the altar to minister, to burn a food offering to the Lord. They shall wash with water, so that they may not die. They shall wash their hands and their feet, so that they may not die. It shall be a statute forever to them, even to him and to his offspring throughout their generations.
Was that all of it?
That's to 21. How far do you want me to go?
Nope, that's right. You're right. Okay, so in the Apostolic Bible, verse 18, it says, in our Bibles, it says a brazen laver, the sea, the bronze sea. The Apostolic Bible says a bathing tub. So, just a second. Just, to me, it just means illuminative, light, and bright. I'm trying to find where I was here. So in the Hebrew mindset, everything about the temple represented heaven, earth, and sea. So I think that not only is it like, it's like you said, Anya, representing purity and illumination. All this seems to me to fit together. The bronze laver was also called the sea also being the outer court of the temple. The sea was for the priests to wash their hands and feet before going into the tabernacle of meeting, lest they die, which is a type and shadow of Christ, cleansing us from the impurities of the world. Let's see. Exodus 25:9 and 25:40 and Hebrews 8:5. Moses is told to make everything according to the pattern of the heavenly temple. Let's see. So 8:5 says, who serve unto the example and shadow of heavenly things, as Moses was admonished of God when he was about to make the tabernacle. For see, saith he, that thou make all things according to the pattern showed thee in the mount. So everything in the temple is surrounded, is represented by heaven, earth, and sea. So we have a brazen laver also, which is called the sea, where they are bathed. It's like baptism. And the ancients viewed the three parts of the temple, the most holy place, the inner court, and the outer court, as corresponding to the three cosmic regions, heaven, earth, and sea. To ancient Hebrews, these three areas of the temple that they called heaven, earth, and sea also corresponded to God, Jews, and Gentiles. It's all intertwined together. Holy of Holies was where God resided, called heaven. The inner court was where the Jews worshiped, called earth. And the outer court was where the Gentiles could worship, called the sea. So what I was pointing out in Ezekiel chapter 10, verse 4, when it says, then the glory of the Lord went up from the cherub and stood over the threshold of the house, and the house was filled with the cloud, and the court was full of the brightness of the Lord's glory. So could also the sea represent the court, the outer court, of the temple, plus the temple in heaven? It's like the outer court. The veil is rent in two, however you say that, and we're seeing into the throne room, and it's the court. The light, the brilliance, the illumination, the brightness, all of it. The types and shadows of the temple, the sea of brass, and then the heavenly spiritual realities that we're seeing in Revelation is how I was seeing things. That's all I have. I just think it's cool, though, that as the prophets are taken into the throne room, they're seeing seraphim and cherubim worshiping, and they show up when Isaiah's beginning his ministry as a prophet, and Ezekiel's taken into the throne room in the spirit, and they all see these creatures.
In the Dead Sea Scrolls, in the Sabbath scrolls where they talk about their worship and stuff, they talk about the living, like the altar being alive, and all the different temple elements all being alive in the heavenly Jerusalem and the heavenly temple.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. If you guys get a chance to read through those Sabbath scrolls, and how on the Sabbath they believed that they entered into that place, and that their worship was through, putting that praise upon that living altar. All these different, symbolisms, the glass, and each one of the elements of the temple was that imagery of being alive, the reality of Him, and they had to use words that they understood to describe something that's undescribable.
Right.
Yeah.
So a sea of glass, just such purity.
Right.
Such, how do you explain that?
I know.
Purity that you wash yourself in when you enter into His presence. You enter into that place, and as we walk through that purity, that sea of glass, we enter into His presence in the fullness of His glory, because He washes the impurities of the world off of us,
Right.
and it's left behind. Just powerful stuff.
And that explains the eyes in the wheels, and them having eyes all around them, and within them, because everything's alive.
Yeah, it's all alive, and it's. I think to me, I think it's all elements of Yahweh in His characteristics, and not so much that there's individual angels or individual, but it's His characteristics going out. And the Jews were into angelic worship, very much so, back then. And
I don't even think these are angels. I think they were angels if they were.
I think it's an element. These creatures are an element. The best way for them to explain the presence of Yahweh in the manifoldness of Him, and how do you describe all that?
Well, in Isaiah, when he's talking about the seraphim, another description of the seraphim, I better just pull it up because what it says about it, the definition I'm talking about. I don't understand these didn't seem to match what I was doing. Let's see, maybe it was King James. There we go. Okay. It also says that they're a serpent, fiery serpent, poisonous serpent, fiery from burning effect of poison. I was wondering if the serpent in the garden was a seraphim.
Possibly.
Lucifer, at one time, or is a seraphim. but he became an evil, poisonous seraphim, where these were holy and majestic seraphim that Isaiah saw and John in Revelation. But I don't know. I'm just, any thoughts on that, you guys? Because that,
It's beyond me.
I know, it's beyond me too.
It does. That does sound striking, though.
What?
He said it does sound striking, though.
Yeah.
It's pretty, yeah. I think it's beyond us.
It is. I know, that's why I was like, before you decided you were doing those other 2 videos on Revelation, I was like, good, Anya will get past this hard part here.
No,
We'll go back and start in chapter 6.
This is your turn. I'm not going to steal your show. I already done all this before.
This isn't my show. It's all just,
But yeah, but
all of us have an input,
I wanted, I wanted, because you brought up scriptures that I never brought out when we did this study. I focused on Ezekiel and stuff, but you brought out an element of judgment that I didn't see, and hearing the differences, because I would have just been repeating the notes that I already took. And, but yeah, this has been good.
Well, when you read Ezekiel chapter 1 through chapter 10, it's all about the courtroom and the judgment of Jerusalem and what Ezekiel sees in the throne room when he's taken in the spirit, and what the elders of the house of Israel were doing in the temple, the abominations, and how in chapter 10 the glory departs from the temple, and he goes through the midst of the land and puts a mark on the foreheads of those that don't participate in that and sigh and cry over the abominations. They get a mark, they are saved through it, and the rest get slain, and
It would be interesting to find out where in the lineup in Ezekiel is that scroll.
yeah, I thought about that too.
If it's actually before or after the temple of Ezekiel 40, is it 42, or that temple description?
The end chapters that talk about the description, yeah. I know.
Yeah,
Where
because
the
we don't
dated scrolls are out of order.
The scrolls are out of order, exactly. Yeah. So I'm like Anya, I'd be curious to see where that actually is supposed to line up with.
I had those notes, and then I gave them away.
I can't remember the people that I used to listen to. Dorothy, do you remember the ones we used to listen to? Maybe you don't. Maybe it wasn't you, but they were going over it also, the outdated scrolls. They're Hebrew roots people, but
yeah,
changed their name, and they have a list that shows the dates of the scrolls and what order they fall in. I should look that up again.
I know Torah of the Tribes, Matt Nolan.
Yes.
Matthew Nolan. I know that he has discussed it. Now, the only trouble I have found with trying to decipher what he puts out is he hasn't really set it up in a nice, neat format where you can look at it and say, oh, okay, here's the format of this is when it was. I mean, he talks about it. I get that. But it's not hard, or I find it hard to follow.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying, is that's where I first heard it, was when he was saying they were out of order. And then this other ministry did a video, and they put them in the order that they thought they should be in according to the dates that Ezekiel says. So I should really look that up and see if I can find it.
Yeah, if you can find that, I'd really like to look at that myself, because it's really obvious when somebody points it out to you that it's not linear or chronological, and you really miss out on what's going on if you don't have any idea that that's what's happening.
Yeah, because of the agenda, the Zionist agenda. They don't want us to know all that, so they make it look like there's going to be a third temple, so they put it toward the end of Ezekiel, and it's purposely misplaced, I believe, all the chapters.
Yeah, and watch 1 through 10 be after that temple, those other temple scrolls.
Yeah.
And, where it's destroyed. The city's destroyed and all of that.
So if
Yeah.
there's anybody, is there a book out there that has them in order?
No, but that's, I think, we'll go through that, and I'll show you when we get off here, what we're talking about. And you can actually go, you have no idea.
You guys should really read Ezekiel 1 through 10. I've read it before, but now that I see it through the throne room and the judgment and everything, wow. It just, there's lots of things that fell right into place.
Wow.
Just about the throne room and what Ezekiel sees and the elements of it. And let me see if I can find an example. I got to get there.
Hey, Anya, if you've got anything written up on that yourself?
I did. I actually took detailed notes, but I was ministering to a Messianic lady that believed, in the temple, being that Yahusha was going to rebuild the temple and start the sacrifices again. And I gave her all my notes. So I gave them away. But I sat down with Matthew Nolan's video, and I paused and wrote it down. It just kept doing that over, all the way through the video.
And I did that with the other video too, and I don't know where my notes are.
I've tried to do that, but he gets sidetracked so much. Yeah. I'm a linear person. I like things in order, and so I can't sit through all of that.
Yeah. I'll find that video, Jax.
It's not. I think if we go through it ourselves, it's not really that hard to do. But we have to go through each scroll, find the date in the beginning and the end of each scroll, and then
that's true.
Put it in order ourselves. And once we do that, I think we'll own it better instead of just listening to somebody else that has already done it. When we do it ourselves, it really ties it in. Okay, because that's the importance of studying it out for ourselves versus.
Totally agree with you.
I'm a visual person too. I like to see a chart, know.
Yeah, that should be easily chartable and should be online somewhere.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it is.
So that would be awesome to find. I've never looked for it.
Well, talking about Ezekiel, in chapter 4, the title in my subtitle is The Siege of Jerusalem portrayed. And in verse 6, I thought this was cool. It says, when he's telling Ezekiel to lay on one side for 390 days to bear the iniquity of the house of Israel. And then in verse 6 it says, and when you have completed them, lie again on your right side. Then you shall bear the iniquity of the house of Judah 40 days. I have laid on you a day for each year.
Wow.
There's your 40 years right there.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. And I found all kinds of neat little nuggets. I'm like, wow, 40 days. There's your secret to 40 days, 40 years.
4, 6?
Yeah, chapter 4, verse 5 and 6. Well, the whole chapter, really. But there's your clue to the judgment, when the judgment happened. 40 days for Judah. And it says, I have laid on you a day for each year.
And then it talks about in verse 7, and for the siege of Jerusalem you shall prepare your face, and you shall stiffen your arm, and shall prophesy against it. And I behold, and I have appointed for you bonds, and you shall not be turned from your one side unto the other side, until which time the days of your siege shall be completed.
Yes.
Keeps on going, but.
And then in verse 9, it goes on to talk about wheat and barley, beans, lentils, millet, and spelt. Put them into one vessel and make bread. So it's going to have him experience the famine of some of the seals. It ties in with Revelation, I think it's chapter 6, where it talks about rationing of the wheat and the barley. And your food, make bread of them for yourself during the number of days that you lie on your side. 390 days you shall eat it. And your food which you shall eat shall be by weight. See, 20 shekels a day, from time to time you shall eat it. And you shall also drink water by measure. So he's having him go through the judgments. And over in chapter 5, verse 17, it lists 4 judgments. I think they're the seals. It says, so I will send against you famine and wild beasts, and they will bereave you. Pestilence and blood shall pass through you, and I will bring the sword against you. I, the Lord, have spoken. So it's really cool when you go from chapter 1 to 10. It's totally connected to what we're reading in Revelation and what we're getting ready to read. And it's all about the judgment.
The balance scale.
Huh?
In chapter 5, verse 1 or 2, it talks about the yoke of the balanced scales and the weight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, talks about the there's a lot of stuff in here.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuggets. I think you guys should all read it. It's pretty powerful. And it's all about the throne room in the spirit. It's all about all the elements of the temple also are in the throne room in heaven. The living creatures, and it's just powerful stuff. And the siege of Jerusalem. It's all about judgment.
5:2, a fourth part, you shall kindle a fire in the middle of the city according to the fullness of the days of the siege. And you shall take part, a fourth part, and shall incinerate it in the midst of it. Yep, it just keeps on going, but
yeah.
Wow.
But I really thought that was cool. Laying on his side to bear the iniquity of the house of Judah 40 days, 1 day for each year.
Wow.
There's your judgment in 40 years from the cross. 70 AD. It's all about 70 AD everywhere.
So is Ezekiel writing chapter 4? Anybody can you remember off the top of your head maybe? This is he's writing all of this post-exile, right?
I'm not sure. I'd have to read that part. I'd have to read it again. No, I think that he's in exile.
So, well, I guess what I mean is it's after he's been taken to Babylon. He's writing all this.
I believe so.
He's not writing in the land, or is he? Is this a prophecy while he was still in Jerusalem, or is this a prophecy he's giving as he's in Babylon looking ahead?
I think it's Babylon looking ahead.
Okay.
Pretty sure, because that 40 days makes it pretty clear.
It says in Ezekiel 1:1, and it came to pass in the 30th year, in the 4th month of the 5th of the month, and I was in the midst of the captivity by the river Shabar.
Yeah.
So he was in captivity. And then it talks about King Jehoiakim in verse 2. So
the heavens opened up and he saw visions. So he's being taken into the throne room. I just think that's so cool.
So he was in captivity.
Yes, and it's prophesying, I believe it's prophesying of what's coming to Jerusalem, to Israel.
Yes, so he wasn't talking about the siege that had already taken place then, because that would have been past tense, right?
Right, that's what I was wondering.
And the only reason I say that he's looking ahead, and maybe those were types and shadows, but is the verse 6 of chapter 4 when he's talking about the 40 days. That's a clue to me that he's talking about 70 AD.
I think what Jax is getting at is the fact that he was in captivity, meaning a siege on Jerusalem had already taken place when he wrote this. So therefore, he wasn't talking about that siege. He wasn't talking about when Babylon took over Jerusalem. He was talking about a future event in the future.
Right.
So that's
how I see it.
Yeah. Yeah, this is pretty amazing.
So what happens is that we get people saying this is not the 70 AD siege, though, and they want to put that as a micro event compared to a yet future event from a futurist paradigm.
Right. But the 40 days to me gives it away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Interesting indeed.
Yeah. Well, this was good. Thank you. You did a bunch of studying this week.
As much as I could.
Well, I'm thankful because it was pretty busy.
It was a short chapter. That helped.
Yeah.
It really is interesting to see how much your perspective can change when you read scripture from a fulfilled point of view.
Yes, I know. Because I hadn't read all those chapters from a fulfilled view. I read them a long time ago, but now seeing them from a fulfilled view, wow, the nuggets of truth that are there.
Yeah, and he said that all of the prophets were fulfilled.
Mhm.
All of those prophecies were fulfilled. That's something that I wanted to do, is go through each of the prophets and study it out with the fulfilled view. It's just so labor intensive.
I know, especially when you work every day.
Yeah.
I've even thought about doing the Torah portions again with the fulfilled view.
Yeah.
Someday.
Someday when we retire.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll send Karen on the journey of doing that. Whoever else is retired in our group. Carol and John.
and I could do that. It's just that I read it and I go, you pull out stuff I'm going, where'd she get that from? To have your insight into what I read is what I need.
So,
Than just reading the word.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we should probably close in prayer.
That one? Yeah.
Have a blessed week.
I don't care about that one. Just you guys.
Well, turn off the recording, or are you going to pray? And then we can
turn off the recording. Let me pray before we turn off.
Okay.
Father, I thank you and praise you for this wonderful study. I thank you for our fellowship. I pray that you would bless every person listening to this video, that our ears and our eyes would be open to your truth, that you would help us to be willing to face our doctrinal tradition and be willing to lay it at your throne room and say, change me. Show me your truth and let me not be stuck in a religious way just because I don't want to let go of it. Father, I thank you so much for showing us your resurrection life. You are powerful. Thank you for the cherubim and seraphim and whatever they mean. We know that you're powerful and you are almighty and you are in charge, and that is what I get out of this. You are so in charge, and all we have to do is join the 24 elders and throw down our thrones, our crowns, and worship you day and night. And you'll take care of all of our enemies. You make them be scattered, and we don't have to turn around and fight those enemies ourselves. Because then we take our eyes off of you. So help us to join with the 24 elders and just worship you and worship you and worship you. You are holy, holy, holy. Great are you. You are holy. We give you honor and glory in Yahushua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Thank you. Very good.
Mhm.
So, there.